So today's video I wanted to do a bit about some skin anatomy. So just some basic layers of the skin and what they do and what the functions are. Just to get everything started so that when I do talk about other things, you can then relate back to how your skin is built in general. So I thought if we start with the deepest layers and work our way out, it would kind of make sense how it progresses as it goes out to the exterior, to the surface. So your skin's broken up into two sections basically. So you've got your epidermis and your dermis. This is kind of where most people just go, yeah, that's pretty much what I know. So the dermis itself is made up of connective tissue, and the dermis is then split up into, some people say 2 layers, some people say 3. Your deepest layer, which some people sometimes don't call part of the skin, but others do. So you do have your subcutaneous layer. Some people like to call it the hypodermis. This is basically where your fat is stored. So obviously this will change depending on, some people will have more fat, some people will have less. So this layer can change in depth and size because of that. Next you have your reticular layer. So this is the deepest layer of it basically contains your hair follicles, your sebaceous and sudoriferous glands. Your sebaceous glands are your oil glands, your sudoriferous are your sweat glands. And then you also have your collagen elastin. So your collagen basically plumps the skin, gives it its structure. Your elastin then gives it obviously the elasticity. So when you pinch your skin and it goes back to its normal shape, that's your elastin bringing things back. The functions of this layer, of the reticular layer, it attaches the skin to deeper tissues, so to your subcutaneous layer. All your sensory receptors are there, so it detects your touch, pain, pressure, vibration, temperature, and you also have your blood vessels that go through there, so they help with your thermoregulation, your temperature basically. So these vessels can dilate, so they can expand or they can restrict depending on if you need to release heat from your body or you need to contain it. So these blood vessels will dilate when you're hot to try and release heat out of your skin. When you're cold, they will restrict, and that's why when some people get hot, they go really red, me being one of those people. Next you have your papillary layer. This is much thinner than your reticular layer. This contains blood vessels as well, and the function is basically to supply nutrients to the epidermis and also to regulate temperature, as I was saying, through that vasodilation and restriction. Next you have your epidermis. So this is the outer layer of your skin. It's made up of your epithelial cells. So epithelial cells line and cover things. So they cover your skin. They also cover your organs. They're kind of like a protective layer, a barrier almost. So this is the skin that you see on top of, like this is the skin that you see. Epidermis is made up of keratinocytes. Keratinocytes produce keratin, which is a type of protein. So your skin, your hair, your nails, they're all made of keratin. It's a dead protein. Your epidermis is then split up into 5 layers. So these layers then have a number of layers within themselves. So your basal layer, which is the deepest layer of the epidermis, which is also called your stratum germinativum. This is just one single layer. And this layer has your active keratinocytes, and they undergo their mitosis. So they undergo your division. Your cells actually divide, and this is how the cells are created basically. This layer also contains your melanocytes. Your melanocytes produce your melanin, which is the pigment in your skin. So once the cells are created in the basal layer, they then move through the skin to the surface. So as they move, are described and developed through that change of the cell maturation, I suppose you could call it. So your stratum spinosum, some people call it your prickle layer. This contains like 3 to 10 layers of this type of cell. So from the basal layer, they then they start to shrink. So once they leave the basal layer, they actually start to die off slowly. This layer has the most amount of Langerhans cells, which help with your immunity responses. And they have this prickly look about them. They kind of have this funny shape. Once they go through the spinosum, they go onto the stratum granulosum, or the granular layer. This contains 2 to 4 layers, and this is where the cell completely starts to die off. So the nucleus, so the heart of the cell, and your organelles. So your organelles are basically little organs inside each cell which help the function of the cell. But all of this starts to die off in this layer. So because it's all dying off, it's then becoming a lot more empty in there, and these cells start to flatten out. Once you get onto your next layer, which is only found in areas you have thick skin, this is your stratum lucidum. This is also called like a clear layer. This can be 3 to 5 layers of skin, of cells, sorry. But again, it's only found in areas that your skin is quite thick. So on the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet. Everywhere else doesn't normally have a lucidum. So then you have your final layer, which is your stratum corneum. And this is made up of 15 to 30 or so approximately layers of cells, and these are completely dead. These are what they call cornified. This basically gives you your waterproof layer. This is what stops in your barrier, basically. When you're washing your face, when you're exfoliating, when you're doing superficial peels, microdermabrasion, things like that, you're actually taking part or all of your stratum corneum off, because they're just the dead, flaky cells. Your keratinocytes take approximately 14 days to reach your stratum corneum from the basal layer. Once they're in the stratum corneum, it then takes another 14 days for them to pass through the corneum. So what happens is, as these new cells are built, they slowly make their way up, and as they get to the edge, to the corneum, they flake off. This natural process of this shedding is called desquamation. When thinking about how to explain skin structure to people, I like to say it's a little bit like a brick wall. So you have your bricks, which are your skin cells, and then you have your cement, which holds it all together. At the bottom, in like your basal layer, you have like the bricks and the cement all set up, all in line. It all fits well together. As you then progress out through the layers to the stratum corneum, you kind of lose that structure. So the bricks then become sort of small and flat, and they don't really have much cement there anymore, and it's kind of just falling apart. So when you're doing like resurfacing or even just exfoliation, just using your scrub, you're basically taking off those flaky layers that tend to sort of overlap, and which means that you have a lot more structure in your skin, which means then also products can work better because they don't have to try and find its way through the skin, through those sloppy layers. It's a lot more structured, and you can absorb a lot easier. So I hope that helps. And if there's anything you want to know more about, or any feedback you've got for me, good or bad, I'd love to hear it. Just comment on this video just below, and I will get back to you soon. Thanks, bye.